to 25 to 30 students who will begin this May. A longtime Cass County Commissioner and former state legislator Al Wieland passed away at the age of 86 on Saturday at Cheyenne Crossings in West Fargo. Wieland was a member of the State House of Representatives representing District 13 in West Fargo from 2002 to 2014 and a county commissioner from 1983 to 2003. Visitation will be from 5 to 7 Friday with a prayer service held at 7 at Faith and Journey Lutheran Church in West Fargo. The funeral will be Saturday at 10:30 at that church. The New Minnesotans Against Marijuana legislative group are hoping to convince state lawmakers to back away from a push to legalize recreational marijuana.
The newly formed coalition says marijuana legalization in Minnesota most likely would have little impact on racial disparities when it comes to equitable enforcement of the law. Ryan Hamilton is with the Minnesota Catholic Conference, which serves as the official public policy voice for the Catholic Church of Minnesota.
The marijuana bill that passed the Minnesota House last session wasn't a justice bill. It was a marijuana commercialization bill. And as we've seen from other states who have opened the doors to the marijuana industry, the promises made to justify marijuana legalization rarely come true, particularly for communities of color.
In 2020, the ACLU found that despite the push for marijuana legalization across the country, a black person was more than 3.5 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than a white person.
That's reporter Mark Fry. Longtime Richland County Sheriff Larry Leshevsky has decided to retire. He joined the department in 1981 and has been sheriff for the past 18 years. Leshevsky says it was difficult to make a decision not to run again. He says he's looking forward to doing other things, including spending more time with his family. Deputy Jason Weber announced last week that he will be a candidate for sheriff. KFGO Weather Center forecast from meteorologist Tom Szymanski. This afternoon, mostly sunny, steady temperature. Tonight, overnight low of 24 below. Tomorrow, we'll see a low of 8 below, and Wednesday, mostly cloudy and windy areas of blowing snow. We'll see a high of 26. Again, wind chill advisory until 9 p.m. and wind chill warning from 9 p.m. tonight to noon tomorrow. I'm Madison Quinn, News Radio KFGO.
KFGO time, 2:10. Sunny, cold. Guess what? It's going to be that way for the next couple of days. Do tell Tom. It's been warning you. Look, it's cold out. It's going to continue to be. The wind chill advisory going to turn into a wind chill warning. You just heard the update from Madison Quinn. We'll get the updated forecast from the tall guy. That went about 35 minutes. I'm Tyler Roxas, your host. Eric Johnson, your producer. This is Afternoons Live. We're going to be with you until that 5 o'clock punch out. A number of things coming up during today's show. We do have Dakota Rudisil. He is an expert. He's worked in previous administrations when it comes to some foreign affairs, in particular with Russia. As I sat in the KFGO studio here, the Pentagon is announcing 8,500 troops placed on heightened alert. Curious your thoughts on that. We'll have the conversation with him as to what he's seeing. Just a couple of weeks ago, in fact, I think it was last Wednesday, we had our friend of the show from NDSU, political science instructor Thomas Ambrosio on, and we had to shorten that conversation because of all the weather that was coming in that day. So we didn't get a chance to really deep dive into this, and hopefully we get a with Russia more robust feel for how things are and what he predicts through Dakota Rudisil going forward. Also, there was a couple of things over this weekend that I saw, and we're gonna have to talk about them. We got audio. You've got anti-vaccine rallies, you've got anti-mask commentary at school boards, and there's something that was repeated at a couple of them when it comes to threat of violence that I want to get your thought on, so we'll play that a little bit later. And we've got Rusty Alverson, and of course, all the weekend happenings in sports. Derek Hansen, host of Couch Potato Radio, is going to join us for that 4 o'clock hour and break it down because, did you watch? I mean, the NFL, if you are a regular viewer of all things professional football, this was, without question, had to be the best weekend of at least playoff football. Every single game comes down to that last possession, that last scoring drive. Lots of drama. There's no question as far as even if you had some lull parts that were kind of felt slow, like maybe it's dragging on, you stuck it out. You were in for some just fun, high-stakes drama in the NFL playoffs. Now we're going to have a cool debate on whether or not the overtime rules need to change in the NFL. You've got what happens in college. You've got what happens in other varieties of football. And the NFL has gone down this, and they've kind of dug their feet. They just maybe massaged the edges a little bit by saying, well, if you get a field goal into the other opponent, it just you've got to, I think, reevaluate going forward whether or not in these playoffs, for example, you're going to have the situation in which a team loses in a high-stakes competitive game basically because they didn't win a coin toss. Love to get your thoughts on that and so much more. The phone lines are going to be open to you all day today at 237-5948. And, of course, you can join the text club at 35270. Unfortunately, because I did have a lot of people bring this up over the weekend, because if you listened on Friday, I said that I was going to be going for the Buffalo Bills. And if they were to advance, that I was going to throw my producer, Eric Johnson, through a table because that is what they do out in Buffalo with the Bills Mafia. And I was pretty disappointed, as I think a lot of other people, that that's not going to be the case now. That you're not going to be throwing through a table. That you're going to watch, you're a Bengals fan, you jumped on their bandwagon and declared on Friday. So no table diving for you going into the Super Bowl.
I live to survive another week. As soon as Tennessee was eliminated, I don't have any dislike for Tennessee specifically. Mm-hmm. But the three remaining teams, I was going to be happy with no matter who the AFC representative was in the Super Bowl.
No, I mean, honestly, given where we are right now, I've got to throw my support, not necessarily behind the Rams, but for Matthew Stafford. You think about the years of which he was playing a high-level quarterback in Detroit, couldn't get over that hump because, let's be honest, the organization of Detroit hasn't been stellar, to put it mildly, and now here he is, gets traded, basically straight up for Jared Goff. He's out there. He's got a team around him. They clearly think that this is going to be the year for them to strike because they went and made some moves. They got Von Miller that had a pretty big game against the Buccaneers. You've got Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, they made the moves, and plus then you got Cooper Kupp, who is arguably the best wide receiver right now playing, an FCS guy. From Eastern Washington.
I heard a stat that staggered me a little bit because Matt Stafford's got some ice water in his veins. He's got some grittiness on those last second. And
he's a tough guy, too.
For it to happen to Tom Brady. But the year that he brought Detroit to the playoffs, he had 8 game-winning drives in that season. That's incredible. And you know, Tampa Bay, I'm sure in retrospect they would have loved for Leonard Fournette to put his knee down on the 1 yard line and let that thing run all the way down, but just was not in the cards.
Wasn't it? Nope. My Niners friends are texting me right now. You're gonna have the Rams Niners now. This will be the 3rd time they play each other this season. Now there's this old little I don't know, is it superstition that you can't beat them 3 times in 1 year. So you watch it, buddy. 237-5948. Tyler, I don't know how the next 3 games could be as good as the last 4. That's the thing. I mean, the bar is set high now going forward. I do anticipate because, especially on the NFC side, you got such a rivalry there. It's the West. It's the NFC West and the Rams and the 49ers. Now, the Niners, I think, might have, if you're thinking about, I don't know if I want to say lack of playmakers, but Jimmy Garoppolo didn't do much except for like 2 drives. That whole team won that game in Lambeau against the Packers. You go and watch as Green Bay stormed down the field, scored their opening drive, and then they didn't do anything hardly the rest of the game. So, I mean, that Niners team, I don't think anybody wants to play them. And it's not exactly going to be one of those. Do the Rams even have home field advantage? Because the last time that the Niners played in L.A., I would say that there was probably more Niners fans there than there were Rams.
A couple things about that Niners game before we get too deep into things. First of all, you played offensive line in high school. You played center. It was always fun for me as a guard when I got to pull out and block the little guys rather than the big guys.
Yes.
Loved it.
Yeah. And then you already picked up steam because now you're in a full sprint instead of, okay, yeah.
How much fun would it be to be able to go in motion? And then Trent Williams wrecking ball. I think he blocked half of the Packers on that play.
And not just, knocked them off, knocked them on their back.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like a wrecking ball swinging through the defense.
You're tied up with somebody. Now you see out of the corner of your eye some 350-pounder at a full sprint, and he's staring at you.
And Trent Williams is a 4'9", 40 guy. Like, he is not a slow 300-pound lineman.
Yeah.
That's a lot of momentum.
And it showed. More messages coming in about a variety of topics. I'll tell you what, for the next half hour, it's you, me, this microphone, your cell phone. Whatever you want to talk about, Ukraine, mask mandates, vaccine rallies, anything's on the table. In fact, somebody else is asking about Canadian truckers. I will dive into that, but I got to take a quick pause in just a little bit. Dakota Rudiso, we will be talking about his analysis of, is Russia planning to invade? What does that mean for us, NATO? Do you support 8,500 American troops being on heightened alert to potentially go over there? And again, we're having the conversation about being the policeman of the world again. And I know there's a lot of people listening to me right now that was one of the biggest praises you gave to the former president, Donald Trump, saying, look, you got to get our troops out of all these other, why are we the policemen of the world? Sounds like we're creeping closer to being that potentially. Your thoughts on that is so much more coming up. We're just getting started. Afternoons Live on a Monday afternoon. Stick around.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just doing the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to address.
So today on MSUM campus we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things.
If you've been following along with the national news out all over the last week, 2 weeks, you've noticed that there's been reports of heightened tensions. And today certainly feel like they're even higher between Russia and everybody else, at least on the West, and basically those that are involved in NATO, surrounded with NATO. And there's a lot of people. In fact, we had Thomas Ambrosio, political science instructor at NDSU, predict that Russia will invade and that there would be a response. That was last week. If you missed that podcast, you can go wherever you get your podcasts, or you could just go to kfgo.com and check out the Afternoons Live podcast there and listen to the conversation as well. And now you've got reports coming from the Pentagon that we're heightened alert, 8,500 troops. I think we have some. There's ships moving over to that area to be strategically placed just in case Russia decides to invade Ukraine. Now, Ukraine's been in the news with us for 2 years, 3 years, because if you'll recall, there was a phone call made previous administration when it comes to digging up dirt. Remember all that? So you've got Ukraine still being kind of one of the center focus of our domestic policy here. And one thing that when I'm watching this unfold, and I hope to get a little bit more of an understanding from Dakota Rudisill here in just about 10 minutes' time, as to what interests the United States have in preventing Russia from attacking or invading Ukraine. Not that I support it. I'm curious because of the things that you as listeners have said and echoed throughout the years here. Of, you know what? Do we have to have troops here? Do you have to have stations there? Do we need to be the policeman of the world? And there's times I find myself nodding in agreement with that. So I want to understand why in this situation, when you have NATO now, of course, being a part of this equation as well, and our commitment to them, but why it seems yet again that we might be taking the lead in the deterrence of this move, if it does happen, as what people are saying. Look, there's a lot of red flags being raised right now, that whether it's the cyber attacks, whether it's the potential troop buildup that Russia has been doing. I think I saw one report that Russia has amassed an estimated 100,000 troops near the Ukrainian border. And their reasoning is saying, look, that NATO probably will never allow Ukraine to join you. And if Ukraine doesn't join NATO, then maybe we'll stand down. Maybe, we won't go in and invade there. So is that the reasoning enough for us to be deploying troops to push back if Russia does do anything? But I mean, all the signs are starting to build. And I know we had people call in last week saying, this is getting overblown, getting overhyped. You have Russia, they're denying it. They're saying that we have no intentions to do this. This is all, what was it, a false flag, I think is what somebody called and said last week. And that's what they're also claiming in Russia as well, saying, look, this isn't us. We have no plans of doing anything. It's just what they're being reported on, and it's not true. The intelligence seems to be pretty dang accurate. There's continuing to be, I think, more consensus from our allies that something is amiss here. And, the whole NATO situation that if you attack one, you attack all, and we won't stand for that. Is that the deterrence in all this? Is it something you support? Is my ultimate question to you. And I would encourage you can start sending them in now, but keep that open mind as we do have an expert in foreign affairs and conflict with Russia when we visit with Dakota Rudisill, who's with the Ohio State University. We've had him on the show before, talking about the tensions between Russia, the United States, primarily about the cyber attacks that were allegedly coming from Russia against our industries. You think about energy, you think about the food supply. Remember when we had all of those hacks that were derailing and causing some turmoil in energy prices, and when it comes to the food getting from, to, and where, all of that going on, and it's because they're saying of Russia. So he broke that down for us a little bit. But now the focus being on Ukraine, not necessarily here. Why do you need to have people over? That's my question, and if you support it, I'd love to hear from you. If you think, it's time, as we were promised, to stop being the policeman of the world, here's how you can get a hold of me, 35270. That's the I Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. And, of course, you can join me at the Laney studio line, which is 237-5948. I just think that you have got to understand what the vested interest is for you and I and people that are listening in, say, North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota, as to why we're already having the heightened awareness of 8,500 troops saying, look, if they step this way, you're going. And you're going to defend, and you're going to have that deterrence there as these tensions continue to escalate. But if you're still holding on to the fact that we don't need to be the policeman of the world, I don't imagine you support seeing what you just saw within the last 15 minutes of the news as I'm breaking into the KFGO studio. I just have that feeling. I'm curious your thoughts. We'll have that conversation a little bit later on. number of messages coming in. I don't have enough time to quite get to all of those. So I will. You promise if you send them in, I'll get to them right after the KFGO News. We'll check in with Rusty Alverson. Speaking of food supply, I know he's been working on some stories when it comes to the food in the classroom and in the lunchroom of your public school. So we'll see what the latest is there going on as well. We'll check in with Madison Quinn, CBS National News, Dakota Rudisill when we come back. I'm Tyler Axis. You are listening to Afternoons Live. You got it locked into either 790 AM, 104.7 FM, or perhaps you're streaming us worldwide, kfgo.com or YouTube Live. You can watch us do radio as we advance further into 2022 with Afternoons Live on a weekday. Just getting started. Don't go anywhere.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to address.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek Hansen, Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that from It Takes Two? Doug here with the morning crew this morning.
News Radio. Yeah, with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Horses Forces. Joel Heitkamp here on the...
Police have confirmed that 7 members of a Moorhead family died of carbon monoxide poisoning last month. The family was found dead in their twin home in the 4400 block of 13th Avenue South on December 18th. High levels of carbon monoxide were detected in their bodies, and the furnace was one suspected cause of the poisonous gas. A dead battery in a van parked in the garage was ruled out after a third-party lab did further analysis. A carbon monoxide detector that had been removed from a wall was found in a cabinet. The victims ranged in age from 5 to 37. They had moved to Moorhead from Honduras. The Highway Patrol has identified a woman who died when an SUV crashed into a flatbed tow truck left on the interstate in western Cass County over the weekend. The crash also critically injured 2 of her children, ages 9 and 14, and seriously injured her husband, the SUV driver. 43-year-old Kelly Hagelrott of Bismarck was killed, and 42-year-old Timothy Hagelrott was taken to a Fargo hospital, along with the 2 children. The truck had a mechanical issue and was left on I-94 near Tower City. The tow truck driver got a ride from the scene and left his truck. The family was returning to Bismarck from a volleyball tournament in Monticello, Minnesota. 3 below, this is KFGO News. Three below, this is KFGO News. The prosecutors told jurors that 3 former Minneapolis police officers charged with violating George Floyd's civil rights did nothing to intervene as Officer Derek Chauvin pinned the man's neck to the street. Prosecutor Samantha Tweeple said that the officers stood by minute after minute as Chauvin killed George Floyd right in front of them. Her comments came as opening statements got underway in the federal trial. North Dakota's health department has continued to monitor influenza activity. The state has confirmed more than 7,500 cases of flu, including 10 deaths. The department's Kirby Kruger says since the start of the influenza season, nearly 11% of North Dakota lab specimens have tested positive.
Predominant is influenza A. Of those that we are able to subtype, most of them have been A, H3N2. We have seen some influenza B, but that activity has really dropped off.
When Minnesota lawmakers return to the Capitol next week for the legislative session, Education Minnesota President Denise Speck will call on them to focus on the well-being of the state's school workers and students. She says Minnesota is the third worst in the country for student-teacher ratios.
That is not anything to be proud of. We've got a historic surplus that we could be earmarking for hiring counselors, for lowering class sizes, for reducing caseloads. Our children need one-on-one individualized instruction right now, and this surplus could certainly make a dent in that.
Minnesota has a $7.7 billion budget surplus. A South Dakota House Committee has approved a proposal to encourage school districts to use most of their increase in state money for teacher salaries. The proposal comes as lawmakers consider passing a historic 6% boost in state funding for schools to keep up with inflation. The bill requires school districts to use at least 85% of the increase for teacher pay and benefits. The teachers' union is pushing the bill, but one district superintendent says it takes flexibility away from school boards. Fargo-Moorhead, our KFGO Weather Center forecast for meteorologist Tom Shemansky. Wind chill advisory until 9 tonight, then a wind chill warning overnight until noon tomorrow. Temperatures holding about steady this afternoon. We should be mostly sunny, 24 below, clear overnight. Tomorrow, sunny, but just 8 below for the high. We will be near 26 degrees for Wednesday's high, mostly cloudy, windy. That could produce some blowing snow. Also partly to mostly cloudy, windy with areas of blowing snow Thursday and 14. Fargo-Moorhead, sunny and 3 below. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
Oh, hello there, Rusty.
Hello.
How's your weekend, man?
Oh, it was really good.
Yeah.
Really good. A lot of good football.
Great
My
football.
Goodness sakes.
Oh boy, they just nailed it. They did. I mean, if you're like, say, the Major League Baseball right now,
yeah,
and you're thinking about it, well, we might have a season, why not? You know, this weekend of watching the NFL, people are the NFL is so far superior to any other organization right now. And this weekend, I think, just added new people to say, yep, this is it. They got something going here.
I think I overheard you saying it came down to final possessions in how many of these games this past
Here's
weekend?
a stat for you.
Okay.
Titans sacked Burrow 9 times. Packers held the 49ers offense to 6 points. Bills took the lead with 13 seconds left. All three of those teams lost. But every single game came down to the last possession.
Wild.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Just can't write a better script for it.
No.
But we'll have more talk about that a little bit
Yeah,
later.
really entertaining as a fan. I mean, gosh.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
You've been working on some, I think, do I dare say food supply, food chain when it comes to the classroom, when it comes to the lunch breaks.
Yeah,
in, public schools.
Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack talking to Congress last week. He testified a very long hearing, about 4 hours, lots of topics. One of those, milk in schools, milk consumption in schools. One lawmaker bringing up the topic of milk in the school nutrition program, which USDA oversees, of course, and milk consumption in the U.S. has been on the decline. That's milk. But dairy consumption, that's been rising. Cheeses, yogurts, those kind of things. Our exports are really good if you can find shipping containers to export the product.
That's a problem, I hear.
Yeah, but Vilsack telling lawmakers there are some hurdles to overcome when it comes to school milk. No, I teased this story during IT2.
Okay.
With Amy and JJ.
Correct.
And Amy said, we've talked about this, and there are efforts underway and have been for quite some time to try and encourage milk consumption in schools. And if you go to the podcast that we have at KFGO.com, It Takes Two, back in July of 2019, they talked about a story, Midwest Dairy providing grants to Williston High School and Century High School for some espresso machines that utilize milk. So this is not a new topic, but we're still talking about it because it is a topic. Now, my thing is cumbersome
to open.
Yeah.
I know. Have you ever heard of Capri Suns? Because those are not the most easy thing to utilize and drink from.
True.
As a child.
True.
It's a carton.
But you do want cold milk. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I remember in the lunchroom. Now, this wasn't during the milk breaks, which you had the little cartons.
Yep.
Which, if you didn't go with the chocolate milk, I don't know what. You had to pay a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have the option?
Yeah, chocolate milk all the way. Yeah.
You even had strawberries an option. Who does strawberries?
What?
Yeah, there was strawberry milk.
Wow.
I never tried it because strawberry milk does not sound
No, I've tried that. It's good. It's good.
Really?
Yeah.
You're not selling me on it.
No. It's good.
Okay. Can you still find it? Or
I don't know that.
Was there enough demand to say, you know what, I need some strawberry milk?
This is interesting because, gosh, you've just opened up my memory. The vaults are being flooded with thoughts of like powders and stuff you can put into milks and.
Oh yeah, that was the Nestle Quick or what?
Yeah.
I think it was what was it called?
I think
it was
that's it.
Nestle Quick. Is that all
I
it
think
was?
so.
Okay, well,
something to do
I'm
with the
one
rabbit.
for one today.
Yeah,
it was the rabbit. Yeah, you have the powder.
Text Club, they'll know.
Yeah, somebody out there. Is it Nestle Quick? Anyway,
I think I'm getting a text
But
right now.
in the lunchroom, you would have that big steel, box, and what you had the weighted handle on.
Mm-hmm.
And you just have the jug of milk in there. Not the jug, but it would be the bag of milk. Almost like bagged wine, except for it's milk. Why can't we just utilize that? That thing seemed to work perfectly fine. It kept that was the coldest milk I remember having.
Yeah. And there's nothing better than a good cold glass of milk.
It's refreshing.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Well, hopefully they find something. I don't buy the whole it's too difficult to open, and that's why kids are foregoing them.
Yeah, well, research.
I'll leave that up to you. How's that sound?
Okay, I'll look into it.
You come back next hour. You tell me about that strawberry milk that you enjoyed.
10-4.
All right, him and Sarah Heinrich, best in the biz, multi-award winning. Go to KFGO.com. Click on that agriculture tab. A lot of messages coming in about Ukraine. I tell you what, we're going to visit with an expert in Dakota Rudisill. That's next. Don't go anywhere.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate, but also have a sense of independence.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out. And just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just giving the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. You know, that's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to address.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
Conversation before the KFGO News about the announcement from the Pentagon that 8,500 U.S. troops are on heightened alert to the situation that seems to be growing in tension over in Ukraine. And it's about the potential invasion from Russia. Here to explain a little bit more from the intelligence side, because he's lived in this world, is Dakota Rudisil with The Ohio State. How are you doing, Dakota? It's been a while.
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fine for a Monday. We're trying to get the train back on tracks here from a crazy weekend that was, at least the world of which we live in. Whether it's the news, whether it's sports, there was just a lot of things going on. A lot of questions left for me when it comes to this whole situation. Last week, I had a professor from NDSU on talking about he does expect Russia to invade, and now we're seeing a potential deterrence from NATO, the United States. What's the latest? What's your gut tell you about this situation, Dakota?
Well, I think that the threat is really serious, really, really severe, that Russia is going to make a military play against Ukraine. And this is a part of Russian President Vladimir Putin's long-term project to keep NATO leaning towards the Kremlin and not west. He wants to restore the Russian Empire, the Soviet Empire. Putin said, even when he took power 20 years ago, he said the voluntary breakup of the Soviet Union 30 years ago. Now, that was he called it the greatest calamity in human history. And so those are his long-term objectives. He wants to weaken NATO. He wants to embarrass the United States. So he's got a really strong interest in doing this. I think the United States and its NATO allies have actually been playing a weak hand really, really well. And I say weak because even though militarily we're stronger than Russia, there's no appetite, I think, within NATO and within the United States population, to fight the Russians in Ukraine. So without that willingness to fight them, what can you do? And I think that the Biden administration and NATO have actually done a pretty good job of deterring Russia through a variety of threats, economic and other, to let them know that if they do this, there's going to be a really severe cost.
One what you just touched on was what I started the conversation with, because you can go back to the last administration, the last campaign in 2016, in which you had then candidate Donald Trump saying, we got to stop being the policeman of the world. And I think of all the things that he said in that campaign, that's the one that I think had probably the most universal nodding of heads saying, that's right. Now here we are with this escalation, and we got 8,500 troops being told they're on heightened alert, to where you still have that presence. But I don't know, and I'm trying to put my finger on the pulse from our listeners here, if they have that general public support to do this, unless there is an understanding of what the vital interests to us are. Can you explain some of that to me? I mean, is there national security interests in the United States to deter Putin, Russia from invading Ukraine?
Excellent question. Really, really important question. So I think that there are important U.S. interests at stake in the Ukraine crisis. I think at the highest level, so you can think about it in terms of goals, U.S. national security goals that are implicated here. I think, number one, we want to avoid a war with Russia, and especially a nuclear war. I think that chance is remote, but you always need to think about that. Second, we need to avoid the NATO alliance being split, being undermined in some way, being embarrassed, and going wobbly. Because as soon as you've got NATO countries that start to knuckle under to the Kremlin, just the entire alliance structure is really called into question. And that would just be a cataclysmic disaster for the United States, for the NATO alliance to be undermined or falling apart. And, after the Cold War, the United States and NATO not only admitted to NATO former Soviet satellites in Eastern Europe, but 3 former Soviet republics, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, became members of the NATO alliance and are extremely nervous about the Russians, coming back. So we need to do that. I mean, we also have an interest in Ukraine in the sense that, we have a general interest in, our model, which is free market democracy, prevailing in the world, and free peoples of the world having the right to make decisions for themselves about, about their economic and political systems and what, the direction of their country. And so what we're looking at here is, an authoritarian state about to roll over, a imperfect but fledgling democracy. And so we got to care about that. So there are real interests involved. On the other hand, you've said, that there is not a lot of desire within the United States politically, to, as you described, to be the to be the policeman of the world. And in fact, that's been, I think, a campaign position of, basically every presidential campaign, since the end of the Cold War. The winning candidate has said that. I think the one exception was when W. Bush ran his second time in 2004. Then he was going to bring democracy to the whole world. The first time Bush ran in 2000, people forget this. The first time Bush ran in 2000, he was critical of the United States being involved in all these places around the world. Well, that changed after 9/11. But so I'm just saying there's this strong tendency in the United States to say, well, we can't be the policeman of the world. We can't do all this stuff. We can't guarantee global security. But the United States has really, really significant geopolitical interests in, the world being a stable place and democracy continuing.
Dakota Rudisill, I guess he's a professor of law at the Ohio State University, talking about Ukraine, Russia, NATO, all of the above. And before I was able to be joined by you, Dakota, I just kind of threw that question out there as, why? Why should we do this? And I'm going to just paraphrase a text because it's lengthy here, but what they finish with is we can't just cede Europe to Putin. So my question, follow-up to you is, if in fact Putin goes in, invades Ukraine, is that the beginning of, okay, well, now we got Ukraine back. Now we're going to go over here, which is, as you pointed out, restore the Russian Empire. So is this the whole, if you give an inch, he's going to take a mile mentality? Is that what we're concerned about as well?
Yeah, there's absolutely a precedent. I mean, that's how these things work in the world is, if one thing happens, then people start to immediately think about, well, what are the next 2 or 3 things that could happen? And so that potential deployment of additional U.S. forces to NATO and to especially Eastern European NATO countries that you mentioned, 8,500 troops, and there are other things being discussed too. That is additional deterrence, and also that's deterrence of Moscow, and also reassurance of our NATO allies. So that if Putin does go into Ukraine or farther into Ukraine, I mean, he's already in Ukraine in 2 places, Crimea and then Eastern Ukraine. That was from 2014. But basically, more U.S. forces to Europe would send a message to Putin that you can't go any farther. You can't go into any NATO country. And I think people can be reassured that I think that there is a really strong understanding that any sort of armed attack on any NATO country, including those 3 former Soviet republics, that would mean a NATO-Russia war. And Putin, I don't think, wants that because I don't think he would prevail. And the escalation risk to a civilizational ending nuclear war would be too much to stomach.
A couple of questions come in from our listeners, Dakota. Tyler, can you ask your guest, is Ukraine a NATO member or not?
No, NATO is not a NATO member. Ukraine has wanted to join NATO for decades and has indicated their interest in doing that. A number of years ago, NATO and the United States said that they were open to NATO. The U.S. and NATO said that they are open to Ukraine potentially becoming a member of NATO. There's a process that has to happen with that. NATO has criteria for the countries that it admits to the alliance, and one of them is basically that you don't have any sort of hot conflicts going on within your territory, because NATO doesn't want to admit a country and then immediately be plunged into a war. And Russia knows this. And so part of their strategy with regard to the former Soviet Republic of Georgia and the former Soviet Republic of Moldova. And since 2014, the former Soviet Republic of Ukraine has been to put Russian forces on the territory of these countries and create both hot conflicts or what's called frozen conflicts, where the Russian military is there on the territory of this country, just to create a problem. And so that if NATO tried to admit any of those three countries I've mentioned, that there would be immediate potential for war. And so that's his game. That's Putin's game. He wants to keep these countries from joining NATO, as Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia did.
Dakota, you got more time for me? I got more messages, but I got to get this weather update. Can I get some more of your time after this break?
You bet.
All right. I appreciate that. I'm going to put you on hold. I asked for 10 minutes, and now I'm asking for more right here on live radio. Got to get you this weather update from Too Tall Tom Szymanski. More of your questions with Dakota Rudisil when we come back right here on KFGO.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of independence.
Here with another News Radio.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Dear
Mighty
Kansas
790
Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that?
It
Takes Two. Doug here with the morning crew this morning. News Radio.
Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces.
Too Tall Tom.
Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for.
Well, I got a couple of minutes before we get you caught up with the national news at the top of the hour. We'll check back in with KFGO news as well. But our guest right now is Dakota Rudisil, and just going through. Here's why we rely on him when he's in front of the show. He's at the Ohio State University. He's an associate professor of law. Before that, he's special assistant to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. And we're talking about NATO, Ukraine, Russia, and Dakota. I know that my producer worked this out because I've got messages coming in. So I'm going to set you up with one to ponder and answer perhaps when we come back after that. Tyler, could you ask your guest to speak to the geographical benefits Russia would gain by taking back Ukraine? So I want you to think about that over the next couple of minutes here, because I think it's an important question of whether or not, Dakota, is Putin just wanting to reclaim the glory that was the Russian Empire, or those strategic national resources that might be a part of that, and why he would be doing that. But I don't have enough time for you to probably answer that right now, I suppose. Oh, it usually helps if I put you on air. Dakota, do I have you? Oh, well,
I'm right here.
Oh, there you are. Sorry. It usually helps when I click the on-air button instead of the hold button on yes. I'm new. I don't know what to do. It's a Monday afternoon. Give me a break, everybody. And there's another one. Tyler, what percentage of Ukrainians would prefer to be a part of Russia? My point to you is you got a lot of people wanting to learn more from your area of expertise. I just don't have enough time for you to answer that. I've only got 30 seconds here. But can I beg of you, just a little bit more time? Give me 5 more minutes.
Happy to do it.
All right. I appreciate that. Dakota Rudisill, again, he's our guest. Whenever we talk Russia, Ukraine, all that, the foreign affairs, he's one of our go-tos. I got to get you caught up with CBS National News. In fact, I'm sure they'll give a little bit more information on this. More with him right after this on KFGO.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of independence.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. The hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11. And volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to address.
Here with another News Radio.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek Hansen, Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that? It Takes Two. Doug here with the morning crew this morning. News Radio.
Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out. Right. And just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just giving the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to address.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of independence.
We'll be joined by Dakota Russo in just a minute. We're going to check in with Paul Jurgens in the KFGO News Center. But today, Neil Diamond turns 84. Neil Diamond used to be putting out hit after hit. Did he just hang around the Vegas area?
He does have that. Newton? Well, you're thinking of Wayne Newton, but Neil definitely has that lounge singer vibe to him. Underrated movie, Saving Silverman.
Yes.
With the diamonds in the rough.
That's a great movie. You think about it. Well, here's my gripe with Comedy Central is you have all this wide array of comedies you can play, but they really just narrow it down to The Hangover, Step Brothers, and like one Adam Sandler movie. It's like you just spread the wings. Throw out some Saving Silverman, all of that coming up. I don't know. Either way, happy birthday. John Belushi's birthday today as well. He was born 1949. We'll play a little Blues Brothers for you a little bit later on. But in the meantime, KFGO News Now. Dakota Rudisil continues our conversation next.
KFGO News, a sunny sky now. It's 3 below zero. I'm Paul Jurgens. A furnace was the source of carbon monoxide that killed 7 members of an immigrant family from Honduras living in Moorhead. Police had said that blood samples from the victim showed a lethal level of carbon monoxide, but further testing was needed to determine whether the source was the furnace or a van parked in an attached garage. The Ramsey County Medical Examiner's Office has found that the poison gas could not have come from the vehicle's battery. A carbon monoxide detector in the garage had been replaced with a smoke-only detector. Experts initially found no defect in the furnace that would have sent carbon monoxide into the home. An effort to gather enough signatures to place a question about legalizing recreational marijuana on the ballot in North Dakota has fallen short. Organizers failed to turn in enough valid signatures to the Secretary of State by Saturday to put the question to voters. Sponsoring committee member Dustin Pyre of Driscoll says the group gathered about 2/3 of the necessary signatures in its one-year time limit. He says the signature threshold is a lot to accomplish for unpaid volunteers. A similar attempt failed in 2020 when the pandemic hampered the group's signature gathering. Police Chief Dave Zabolski introduced 5 new officers during a swearing-in ceremony in Fargo today. Zabolski also introduced 3 new crime analysts and 3 police support members to the department, all civilian employees. Swearing-in puts the police force at 169 sworn officers. The department is authorized for a maximum of 189 sworn officers. The upcoming 3rd Fargo Police Academy has received about 95 applicants and will be narrowed down to 25 to 30 students who will begin in May. A dream come true for Fargo Olympian Paul Schomer. Schomer was on the cross-country team at the College of St. Scholastica in Duluth, where his college coach introduced him to the biathlon. Now, after finishing with a career best at the World Cup, he is representing the U.S. in the biathlon.
It's definitely an honor to be able to represent the U.S. at the Winter Olympics. When I first heard about the team naming, I thought about all the people that helped get me here. Actually getting to Beijing, getting my feet on the ground and starting those races is where it's really going to start to set in, but also that's what I'm training for.
For those striving to get to the top of their profession, Schomer has a message.
It doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it's a long process, and perseverance is sometimes one of the greatest traits to be able to achieve a goal.
The Winter Olympics begin February 4th and run through the 20th. Fargo-Moorhead wind chill advisory until late this evening, and then a wind chill warning. Overnight until noon tomorrow. Fargo-Moorhead, nearly steady temperatures this afternoon, mostly sunny. Clear, about 24 for the overnight low. Tomorrow, just 8 below for the high, sunshine. 26 Wednesday, mostly cloudy, windy, some areas of blowing snow. Thursday, partly to mostly cloudy, another windy day. Again, areas of blowing snow and 14. And 15, the high, partly sunny Friday. Fargo-Moorhead, sunny and 3 below zero. Paul Juergens, News Radio KFGO.
KFGO time, fast approaching 3:10 on a Monday afternoon. I'm Tyler Rex, as your host. Appreciate you sticking around here on KFGO. We're going to continue the conversation. If you're just joining us, we've been visiting about some news we just heard over CBS, that 8,500 U.S. troops are put on heightened alert because of the pending invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And our guest is Dakota Rudisil, and he is an expert on all these topics. And we're damn glad to have him as a friend of the show. Dakota, I still got you?
Yep, great to be here.
Okay, I asked for just a couple minutes. You're giving me way more. I am indebted to you. But we have some listeners that are asking some, I think, pretty good questions here. And what we left off with, I told you to ponder. Tyler, could your guest, Dakota, speak to the geographical benefits that Russia would gain by taking Ukraine?
Yeah, well, I think there are some additional geographic benefits. And I say additional because when Russia by force took the Crimean Peninsula in 2014, that was kind of a geographical coup for Russia. If anyone wants to follow along at home, just Google Ukraine and look at a map. The Crimean Peninsula is this kind of diamond-shaped peninsula that juts into the Black Sea. And that was part of Ukraine, and Russia basically fabricated a kind of pretext to go into Crimea, and they took that in 2014. And because they got Crimea, then under the law of the sea, they would have massive claims to oil and gas deposits at the bottom of the Black Sea, and they've been asserting that. Nobody in the world, except maybe China, I'd have to check on that, thinks that what Russia did in taking Crimea is legal. And so those claims are all contested. So if Russia were to gobble up all of Ukraine, they'd get some additional Ukrainian shoreline on the Black Sea and I guess be able to advance further claims to that oil and gas. And that matters to Putin because his regime is just really kind of tightly caught up with some oligarchs in Russia who are in the oil and gas industry, and so that would mean some money for them. And I guess, Russia would have access to the rest of the territory of Ukraine, which has got a sizable population and whatnot. But, really, the main benefit I think to Putin and to Russia of gobbling up Ukraine is not so much geographical as geopolitical. It would ensure that Ukraine doesn't lean to the West, and it would also ensure that Ukraine doesn't become Putin's nightmare, which is a Slavic country that used to be part of the Soviet Union that is democratic and not corrupt and leaning to the West. And that's horrible because Putin's model that he's created in Russia is a country that has all the formal structures of a democracy with elections and a parliament, but it's totally meaningless. It's just you've got a dictator in an authoritarian state who kills his political opponents and jails them. And the Russian economy is not in great shape, in part because of the sanctions he's been slapped with for invading Ukraine. So it's much more kind of geopolitical, if you will, than geographical.
Well, and you were just starting to kind of dip your toe into this next question that came in. I do believe this one comes in. Tyler, what percentage of Ukrainians would prefer to be a part of Russia? And I don't know if you have an actual, all right, well, polling shows this, but I think you skimmed the surface there saying that, the way they lean isn't with a regime of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, it's interesting. On the break, I was just hitting the Google machine and seeing if I could find some polling data on, how many Ukrainians want to join Russia. And I didn't find anything that's more recent than 5 years ago. So, but I think that the best reporting on just kind of this issue of Ukrainian popular sentiment, I think what it tells us is basically this, that, when you look at a map of Ukraine, most of Ukraine is overwhelmingly Ukrainian, but as you get towards the east of Ukraine into an area called the Donbass, it becomes more and more Russian. And when you get to the far east of Ukraine, it becomes majority Russian. And some of them do want to join Russia. I think probably what most of the Russians and Russian speakers in Ukraine actually want is they want Ukraine to be its own country, so they have more political autonomy, but it's a regime that answers to the Kremlin, right? And that the Russian state, the Russian military is protecting Russians in Ukraine and allowing them to be in a powerful position, even though they're a minority. So basically, I think you could think about it this way. Basically, Russians in Ukraine probably want minority rule with the Russian sword, right? Protecting them, sword and shield, if you will. But the vast majority of people in Ukraine want to be independent, and they want to join NATO. They want to join the European Union. They want to be aligned with the United States. They want to be a democracy. So all those things, right, are things that America cares about.
Well, and that's why I was so intrigued by that question is because you think about other times where we've been a part of a conflict on a foreign land that you hear the reports, well, this population doesn't even want what the United States is offering or what NATO's offering as protection under. So if you don't have the buy-in from the population, what you were supposed to be protecting or deterring, an adversary from invading, if they don't want it, then why would we be there? But if it does, if the Ukrainians want to be a part of NATO, they want, then I think that lends itself to probably a little bit more of an acceptance of actually taking an action militarily to deter Putin from reclaiming this land.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important point. So I would put it this way. Ukraine is not Iraq. It's not Afghanistan. In both those countries, the United States went in militarily and tried to set up democracies. And the vast majority of the people in those countries were not on board, and it's very different in Ukraine. There's really, really strong popular sentiment in Ukraine to, again, want to be a democracy, want to join the NATO alliance, want to join the European Union, want to be a free and Western country. That's the vast majority of the people in Ukraine. And in fact, in 2014, there was a popular uprising in Ukraine that pushed out one of Putin's toadies, who was the president at the time. That was called the Maidan Revolution. And, that reflected strong popular will in Ukraine. And, of course, in response to the Ukrainian people kicking out a authoritarian Russian toady, that's when Putin invaded Crimea and invaded eastern Ukraine. I mean, he can see the writing on the wall.
Yeah, we talked about the Crimea and that invasion in 2014. I mean, if he would successfully did that, he had some sanctions, I believe. I mean, that did not deter.
Yep.
So is this the whole look? because he was able to get away with it in Crimea, that's why he's advancing on Ukraine? Or am I off in saying that?
No, that's a really important point. I mean, he got slapped. Putin and Russia got slapped with really serious sanctions in 2014 after they invaded Ukraine, and those have made life harder for most Russians. And so I think one question is, why does Putin want to keep doing this? I think one idea is just because things are kind of rough in Russia. It's been, the really rich in Russia are doing gangbusters. The vast majority of people in Russia are economically stagnant. There's an undercurrent of unhappiness with Putin's rule because of the economic stagnation, because of his authoritarianism. He kills people who oppose his regime. I mean, this is not a democracy we understand. So there's that unhappiness. And so one idea is like, well, he's gonna say, well, there's this threat from NATO. There's this foreign threat. U.S., NATO, we need to have a war now in Ukraine. He's trying to distract people. But I think one of the big problems for Putin, and I think the Biden administration and NATO have done actually a really good job of sending this message, just as best they can, is that, if Putin invades Ukraine further, the sanctions are going to be so much worse than they were before. I mean, basically, the U.S. is talking about basically not making it possible for Russians to participate in the global banking system and cutting off semiconductor shipments to Russia. I mean, these would have a really big impact. So if that happens and you're Putin, you're probably even having more unhappiness at home. Yeah. So, it's a complicated issue, and, we'll have to see what happens.
Dakota, I took way more of your time than what I asked for this morning. Is there anything you want to get out before I let you get back after it?
Hey, I'll just leave you with this final thought, which is, we're talking about precedents. What does this mean? So in the world right now, there are two places in the world where there's a democracy that is being threatened by a nuclear-armed authoritarian state. That's Ukraine getting threatened by Russia, and that's Taiwan getting threatened by China. And you got to think about these together. If Putin rolls over Ukraine and crushes a democracy, but if we don't fight in Ukraine, does that mean we're not going to fight the Chinese to defend democratic Taiwan? What is that message? What does it send? We're at a perilous moment, and I don't think there is a perfect solution that's out there.
Well, and then on the flip side of that coin, if we do defend and we have a military strike to defend Ukraine and China doesn't get deterred from that, does that mean we're now active in two parts of the world?
Yeah, it's a real issue. I mean, I think it's, I think that there is a sense within, I think not only within this administration, but I think certainly within the Republican Party too. And I think a lot of Americans, or more Americans, would say like, yeah, let's defend Taiwan. They're our ally. They're a democracy, right? Let's not let Taiwan get crushed by China. Well, ask yourself, why would we spill American blood to defend Taiwan from China, and we would not spill American blood to defend democratic Ukraine from Russia, right? I mean, they're basically, it's the same situation. And I just think we all need to do a lot of reflection about that.
Oh, heavy stuff for a Monday afternoon, Dakota. I appreciate you explaining it to me, though, so we can digest it. And I tell you what, I got your number. If anything does change, just promise me you'll answer, all right?
Always a pleasure.
Hey, I always appreciate your time there. I'll let you go. Dakota Rudisil, boy, lots to digest there, but you know what? He's one of our friends of the show here. He's with the Ohio State University. I mean, just the knowledge he brings to this region of the world. I just appreciate him taking so much time for us today. Your messages continue to come into the I Consultants of North Dakota text club at 35270. I will get to those. You can join me on the Laney studio line as well, 237-5948. I'm Tyler Axedis. Monday afternoons rolling on right here on KFGO.
Robertson here with another Don News Radio.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek Hansen, Couch Potato Radio. Did you see
from
It
Takes
Two? Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning.
News Radio. Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Force. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate, but also have a sense of independence.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out. Right. And just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started
I'm going to get to the text club, get some of your thoughts out of this whole situation. Tyler, the U.S. will go to war for about a half dozen reasons preventing the spread of communism. Another one, Tyler, my Air Force family, and this is one that I paraphrase her, but I want to get the whole thing out for you. Tyler, my Air Force family member says we, as in the U.S. military, is NATO. We are NATO's enforcers, soldiers. These are the countries that rely on the U.S. to provide the manpower muscle. There aren't other countries who can or who will defend NATO countries. We just can't cede Europe to Putin. Well, and that's why I'd asked, would this just be the beginning? All right, well, we got Crimea, now we got Ukraine. Well, what's next? You know what? What's another part of that old Russian empire that we could get back? Because they're not stopping us. And then to have that conversation wrap up with Dakota Rudisill saying, look, the eyes of the world watching what a response would be because you have another situation, which you got Taiwan and China. And for me, if you have to defend one, then why wouldn't you defend the other one? Or vice versa. It's complicated, is putting it mildly here. And that's what Tyler, great guest, talking about Russia and Ukraine. He took a complicated issue and made it easy to understand. It also has me nervous about my brother teaching at an American school in Taiwan. Well, thanks for the compliment. That's when you find somebody that can break it down and explain it to me like I'm 5, as Dakota Rudisill is able to do with his foreign affairs. I appreciate that. Him and Thomas Ambrosio at NDSU, I mean, top notch, being able to explain something so complex. That's why I'm glad that they're so willing to join us here on Afternoons Live right here on KFGO for that. It comes back to what can you do as, say, the Biden administration, and what you don't have an appetite to send troops around the world from the general public. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody disagreed with, hey, it was long past time to pull troops out of Afghanistan. Many of it because of the whole, why are we the policemen over there? They don't even want us there. Iraq, same thing. You just heard they didn't even want us there. This situation might be vastly different for a number of reasons, but still, if you're sitting at the cafe, which I would encourage you to get to the cafe in Mapleton tomorrow, because Coffee with KFGO is going to be out there doing their thing, and I hopefully get a chance to visit with you out there. And then I'll take over News and Views from 10 to 11, but get out there and visit. Love to get a chance to visit with you there. But a lot of people that are visiting at those cafes right now, those coffee shops, those pubs, they're wondering why would we do this if it's not going to impact me right here? And I think that attitude across the country of if there's no national security implication, if there's no economic situation in which it impacts me and my checkbook, then why are we doing this? I don't know how an administration you get past that. Maybe that's why you're seeing the 8,500. Maybe that's why that's sanctions to deter is hopefully. But you just heard from another expert saying that this is growing more likely that they're going to make a move from the Russian side of this border. So what's the response? I don't know. I don't know what you would support. You can define it for me at 237-5948, or you can text into 35270. We'll continue that conversation. Also, there was There was a mother at a school board that threatened violence today because of a mask mandate. We got the audio there from Amelia King, who was the woman that made the threat. She was charged with making the oral threat. You have this situation. I know that there was a rally out in Washington, D.C. That was the anti-vaccine mandate. And I wish I could find the audio of an individual threatening violence there again. How did we get here? We'll talk about that as well. Then we'll wrap up the day with sports. And boy, do we got a lot of sports to talk about. I'm Tyler Axis. You got it locked into 790 AM and 104.7 FM, KFGO.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out. Right. And just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to address.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things.
Coalition of groups ranging from the Minnesota Safety Council to the Minnesota Catholic Conference is launched to push against legalizing recreational marijuana. John Hausladen with the Minnesota Trucking Association warns it'll make roads less safe.
The data from Washington State does bear this out. The share of drivers involved in fatal crashes with THC in their system doubled, say that again, doubled, after marijuana was legalized in Washington State.
Coalition leaders acknowledge that their strategy is to give voters information for this fall's election, which will include a battle for control of the Minnesota Senate. It's currently controlled by Republicans who strongly oppose legalizing recreational marijuana. An effort to gather enough signatures to place a question about legalizing recreational pot on the ballot in North Dakota has fallen short. Organizers failed to turn in enough valid signatures to the Secretary of State. The deadline was Saturday. The group gathered about 2/3 of the necessary signatures in its one-year time limit. A similar attempt failed in 2020 when the pandemic hampered the group's signature gathering. 3 below zero, this is KFGO News. Three below, this is KFGO News. A furnace was the source of carbon monoxide that killed 7 members of an immigrant family from Honduras living in Moorhead last month. Police had said that blood samples from the victims showed a lethal level of carbon monoxide, but further testing was needed to determine whether the source was the furnace or a van parked in an attached garage. The Ramsey County Medical Examiner's Office has found that the poison gas could not have come from the vehicle's battery. A carbon monoxide detector in the garage had been replaced with a smoke-only detector. The civil rights trial against 3 former Minneapolis police officers is now underway at the federal courthouse in St. Paul.
Total, J. Alexander Kang, and Thomas Lane are charged with violating George Floyd's civil rights when he was killed by Derek Chauvin, who's in jail on a state murder conviction. Attorney Joe Tamburino not associated with the case, and unlike Chauvin, these defendants are expected to take the stand.
Because basically they have to. In this kind of a case, you have to get up on the stand and say, look, I did not intend to do anything to Mr. Floyd, and specifically I didn't want to violate his civil rights. I was just trying to assist in the arrest.
Tamburino saying it's going to be difficult for prosecutors.
Unlike in the Chauvin case, where the judge basically allowed 6 or 7 witnesses to give their opinions, the judge in this case is following the rules very closely, and he has clearly stated that unless a person has a specific talent or basically an expertise in a specific field, they just simply can't give opinions.
In addition to his murder conviction, Chauvin pleaded guilty to federal civil rights charges.
That's reporter Steve Simpson. A longtime Cass County commissioner and former state legislator Al Wieland passed away at the age of 86 on Saturday at Cheyenne Crossings in West Fargo. Wieland was a member of the state house. He represented District 13 in West Fargo from 2002 to 2014 and was a county commissioner from 1983 to 2003. Visitation will be from 5 to 7 Friday with a prayer service held at 7 at Faith and Journey Lutheran Church in West Fargo. The funeral is set for Saturday morning at 10:30 at the church. Longtime Richland County Sheriff Larry Leshesky has decided to retire. He joined the department in 1981. He's been sheriff for the past 18 years. Leshesky says it was a difficult decision not to run again. He says he's looking forward to doing other things, including spending more time with family. Deputy Jason Weber announced last week that he will be a candidate for sheriff. Fargo-Moorhead, a wind chill advisory until later this evening, and then we will be under a wind chill warning until noon tomorrow. Fargo-Moorhead, a mostly sunny afternoon. Temperatures holding about steady. Will be clear overnight, 24 below. Tomorrow sunny, just 8 below zero for the high, near 26 degrees. Then Wednesday, mostly cloudy. Wind picks up, some blowing snow. Also Thursday, blowing snow, mostly cloudy, high of 14, and partly sunny. Friday, 15 the high. Fargo-Moorhead, 2 below zero. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
I believe it's Nesquik is what we're trying to figure it out.
I believe you're right.
I think it's Nesquik.
I believe you're right. Correct.
But you see that on the store shelf, and you've got the options of chocolate and strawberry.
Mm-hmm.
You're going chocolate, right?
Well, personally,
or is
for
it
me,
cocoa?
yeah,
same.
Yeah, for me.
I know it was an option. All I'm saying is I know it was an option to have the strawberry flavored milk.
Yeah.
From the milk carton.
Some people are big fans.
But I do not know that anybody in the class of 16 that I had.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was either the 2%, the blue carton, or you had that chocolatey brown chocolate milk. And I don't remember what was the difference. Was a quarter maybe in price? I don't remember. It was so long.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
All right. Either way, strawberry. Let's find some and try it.
Yeah.
You've been working on some other things over the weekend. I think there was I don't know if you want to call it a rally, a protest. There was a convoy.
There was a convoy.
There was a convoy.
There is a convoy.
There is.
There is a convoy.
From the Canadian side of the good old northern border.
Yeah. The scoop is that Reuters News reporting a convoy of truckers started the march from Vancouver yesterday to the capital city of Ottawa. They are protesting the government's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for truckers. Funds being raised on a GoFundMe page, Freedom Convoy 2022, planning to pay for fuel, food, and hotels for this, what you could say is a protest. Canadian Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos recently explained that both Canadian and American truckers were given 3 months' notice before these new rules came into effect. Tyler, that audio is thanks to a farm broadcasting colleague, Dennis Guy of Ontario. The Canadian Trucking Alliance says as many as 32,000 or 20% of the 160,000 Canadian and American cross-border truck drivers may be taken off the road due to the mandate.
Well, I'd seen the photo of the convoy, I guess. So, I mean, this is just another line. I won't pull you into you're the journalist here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Except for when it comes to your preference of milk, then I want your opinion.
Oh yeah, chocolate. Chocolate.
But, yeah, it's just this is happening, I think, in a lot of industries. I mean, there was a Carhartt situation just last week, in fact, where they said, yeah, we're still going to require this regardless of Supreme Court. And I know that had people riled up as well. But when you're thinking about the trucking industry and what that might mean when we're already talking about supply chain issues, and then you have the whole situation of a border between two countries having this, I understand the passion, but yeah, that's all I'm going to leave it at with you in the room, okay?
Yeah, that's cool with me.
Right? I'll let you duck out of here before I throw some more fuel on that fire. All
yeah,
right?
you betcha.
All right, Rusty, appreciate it. Hey, Tyler, I would prefer chocolate over strawberry, but it's not bad. This person says, I grew up in the Denver area where it was the milk was an option, under the strawberry milk. I remember it being an option. I just never tried it.
Yeah, I was always
it
a big fan of the chocolate.
Appealing.
Yeah. I would not turn down strawberry milk.
We're going to find. I mean, they have to have that in a somewhere at a store.
Somewhere.
And not just the powder. Maybe just the powder. I don't know. That's our homework for tonight.
All right. I like that kind of assignment.
And we'll try it tomorrow.
Okay.
Right here. We got to keep that stuff cold, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Milk was a bad choice.
Shouldn't be too challenging tonight.
Yeah, just throw it outdoors.
Yeah.
What's the it's 2 below right now, and this is the warmest part of the day.
Yeah.
So tonight, 24 below. But hey, look, on Wednesday, a high of 26.
I like that.
That's going to feel like a t-shirt and shorts weather.
Yep.
That's a bro tank type of day here in January. Russ, I'm going to let you go.
And Zubas.
Appreciate it, man.
You bet.
You want to check out more of his work, you can go to KFGO.com. Just click on that agriculture tab. Messages coming in about the Russian potential invasion. Would you support the action against it? That coming up. Plus, I got some audio that bugged the life out of me. I'll play that for you. We'll have a conversation about that in sports next.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out. Right. And just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to address.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek Hansen, Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that from It Takes Two? Doug here with the morning crew this morning.
News Radio. Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Force.
Too tall,
Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things.
All right, another one comes in, 35270. That's the Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. Tyler, Russia wants us at war. It is a trap, and we're falling for it, comes in. And the tensions have been escalating for quite some time between us and them. I have no doubt that I'm curious what quite frankly the advantage is for Russia, who doesn't have the military might that we do, for picking a fight with us in NATO. It seems that what you're hearing from experts is almost that it feels inevitable that they're going to make a move. Now, the whole sanctions, is that going to be enough to deter? It doesn't seem as though up until this point that it has. So maybe just even the news coming out that, look, we've got 8,500 troops now on heightened alert saying, look, you take a step this way, here's what's coming. Maybe that'll be enough. I don't know. Nobody seems optimistic that this is going to be avoided. 237-594. That's the Laney studio line. That's where we're going to connect with Jim. Jim, thanks for calling. How are you?
Good.
What's on your mind today there, buddy?
I was wondering what our wind chill is, and these kids are running around with hardly nothing on.
Well, I can tell you the wind chill is not, it's not good. I can tell you that. We're under a wind chill advisory till 9 p.m., and then we got a warning up until noon tomorrow. We got an update from Too Tall Tom coming up in about 2 minutes that should tell us what the wind chill is out there, Jim. All right?
I sure like your guys' show, you and Amy.
JJ and Amy? That's right before us.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, Jim. I enjoy their show, too. And I enjoy you calling in from time to time. I love me some It Takes Two. This is Afternoons Live.
So there's not a scheduling change that I wasn't made aware of? I figured I was worried there was an email I wasn't.
Which is common for you to not be included on those emails. You're on a need to know. Quite frankly, sometimes you just don't need to know. To Jim's point, though, it is blistering cold out there. And the fact that you have people that are not dressed for the weather right now, and especially if they're young children, that's bothersome because this does not take long to impact, get frostbite. And quite frankly, you're out there and you hit that wall of wind that hits you right in the face. It doesn't take long to notice just how cold it is. I don't care how active you're being out there. So hopefully those kids are getting indoors because it's going to stay cold throughout the next couple of days. When you have tonight the low getting to 24 below and that wind chill that feels rotten index, as Too Tall Tom likes to call it, at 42 below, yeah, that's very dangerous out there. In fact, don't take it from me, take it from me, and we'll get you that weather update right now. I got some audio I want you to listen to and get your take on as to how in the world we got to having this discourse, whether it's about mask mandates, whether it's about vaccine mandates, or any other political conversation. A mother came into a school board and threatened that my children will not be wearing masks, and I will let you listen to her and what she would do today had she not been arrested for her threat after this weather update from Too Tall Tom. We'll wrap up the second hour of Afternoons Live next. I'm Tyler X, your host. Don't go anywhere.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page. And send us a text anytime at 35270.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate, but also have a sense of independence.
Here with another News Radio.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek
Mighty
Hansen, Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that? It Takes Two. Doug here with the morning crew this morning. News Radio.
Katie Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces. Too tall. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Access, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how
until the top of the hour, 4
is.
o'clock, we'll get all your latest national news headlines of CBS. Check back in with Paul Jurgens of that KFGO News Center. In the meantime, it's you, me, this microphone, your cell phone, whatever you want to talk about, I'm here for you. And in fact, we're going to connect with Scott, who's called in. Scott, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing well for a Monday afternoon. Appreciate you. You're calling in. What's up?
I was calling about Putin. I think that this guy is like crazy, and I think he could be another Hitler. And we had a former president who was his friend, and he keeps doing this weird stuff that, nobody can explain it, but he wants his power. That's what he's dealing with.
Yeah, well, he's certainly wanting to flex his muscle and reclaim the Russian Empire is basically what Dakota Rudisill had to say, and the fact that he's willing to take political violence against his opponents within his own country, and then try to force his way back into territory that's no longer part of Russia, and quite frankly, they don't want him to be a part of it. It's troubling, and that's where I find myself trying to figure out, what, if anything, are we supposed to be doing to prevent him from just taking a mile after he is given an inch, Scott?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it's very troubling. It's very troubling, and it's something that we had to think about. 50 years ago, our parents thought about this, or 60 years ago, and they had to deal with something, but I don't know. I don't know how to explain it any better.
Well, Scott, I appreciate you adding your opinion to the conversation. I mean, I don't know, is there a right answer? Here's what I keep coming back to this point of, and Scott just brought up, 60 years ago, our parents had to deal with this, and I think at that time, there was more of a unified opinion right here domestically about what we're willing to do, what we're willing to sacrifice to, prevent, communism or, dictatorships at that time. I don't know that there is that same unified, all right, pull up the bootstraps, let's get to work and make sure that, our side is the one that prevails, or our ideas of democracy, for example. And I think if you don't have as strong of a unified, let's go get them, let's stop them, crazy over there, trying to flex muscle, trying to impose his personal agenda onto a whole country that is not within his territory. If you don't have that, we're all in this to deter that. I don't know how you can really effectively have a national policy that is unifying. Because what I'm getting at is you send troops, and then, we don't have the appetite at home, so then you get an administrative change happen within the next cycle, and then you have a different approach. It just seems more chaotic, I guess, now when it comes to our own internal decision-making process than what I think maybe it was. Now, granted, I wasn't around back then, so if I'm wrong and you were around and you remember the concern, the uncertainty of when this really was at its height back then, the deterrence, the mutual destruction, all that stuff, by all means, lend your voice to the conversation. 237-594. It's the Laney studio line. You can text me at 35270, the iConsultants of North Dakota Text Club. It's so complicated. I mean, so complicated that, and to add in the fact that you have other aspects of other parts of the world that are similar in their circumstances, similar to what they want to impose, their border, their government onto them. Going back to China and Taiwan, it's just, what do you do? And I don't want it to seem as though you throw your hands up and just walk away, because I don't think that is the right approach either. But at what point do you have that balance of what we were talking about at the beginning of the show? Don't be the policeman of the world, but you still want the world to kind of be within your vision of what works better for us. I don't care if that sounds selfish. That's just, quite frankly, the way I'm reading this right now. In fact, I'll read some of your text messages here. Tyler, Putin has been extremely dangerous for many years. He had 4 years of gaining power and evil while Trump defended him and pocketed him. Just tuning in, so I missed if the divide of our nation, political and against each other, is how Russian opinion is falling too. Are the Trump lovers against holding Russia accountable too? To that last point, and what you did miss, and I'd encourage you, go to kfgo.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Had a great conversation with Dakota Rudiso. He's a political or a law professor at the Ohio State University, but he's been involved in the intelligence community under previous administrations. But to that last part of, are people that, as you call them, Trump lovers against holding Russia accountable. The one thing I saw online today that touches on that was a congressman, I believe from New Jersey, and I don't have his name right now, but I saw it, and I saw a lot of people resharing or retweeting, journalists in particular, that you had a congressman put out there that his office is fielding phone calls from his constituents in New Jersey, upset that he is not supporting the reasonable approaches and reasonable demands of Vladimir Putin. And they're doing this because of what they're seeing on Tucker Carlson's show on Fox News. So there is at least a portion right here that sees what Russia is doing not wrong at all. Why wouldn't you support their reasonable demands is what at least one congressman is reporting that he's hearing from his constituents based on what Tucker Carlson on Fox News is saying on his nightly program. That's troublesome for me. I'm curious if, in fact, you are you one of them? Are you saying, well, look, just go ahead and let them go ahead and take on Ukraine? What do we have, a dog and fight? They seem reasonable, right? A guy that kills his political adversaries in the country he has now. Sure, let him take a little bit more. The Tucker Carlson situation, I think, has been muddling around in the background for quite some time, or just what you hear, then taking that as gospel and running around and then calling your congressman about it. This one bothers me. They have a congressman now having to explain why his approach is different from Tucker Carlson. We'll continue this conversation. I tell you what we got to do. There's audio. If I don't get to it today, we'll play it tomorrow, because I do want to visit with Derek Hansen. He is host of Couch Potato Radio. The weekend in sports was incredible, especially if you're a football fan. Lots to digest. We'll do that. Also, Hoagie, right here from our neck of the woods, one of us playing his best round of, or not best round of golf, but he is at the highest position as far as ranking goes in the world I think that he's ever been, and I don't even think it's close, so we'll talk about that. And anything else related to sports that you want to talk about this final hour of the program. I'm Tyler Exodus. We got a lot of show left. If you have more thoughts on the whole Ukrainian situation, I will definitely dive in. Got one more time for a message. Tyler, I wonder if some of the listeners will dispute your advice to have their kids dress warmer because frostbite is just a hoax and no one can tell them what to do. A tongue-in-cheek conversation coming in or text about this. If, in fact, as Jim was calling in saying, what's the wind chill because there's kids running around with barely anything on, that's also something else that, come on, let's have some common sense out there. Check to see what everyone's wearing before they're leaving the house for school. You don't want to have kids get in this situation when it's so dangerously cold. And it's going to be this way for the next couple of days before we see just a little bit of warm-up. You got it locked into 790 AM and 104.7 FM KFGO. More Afternoons Live right after this national news.
Here with another News Radio.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek
Mighty
Hansen, Couch
790.
Potato Radio. Did you see that? It Takes Two. Doug here with the morning crew this morning. News Radio.
Katie Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces. Too tall. Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page. And send us a text anytime at 35270.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of independence.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to address.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of independence.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 35270.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek
Mighty
Hansen,
790.
Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that? It Takes Two. Doug here with the morning crew this morning. Paul Jerkins News Radio.
Katie Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces.
Too tall,
Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out, and just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night.
Time to clear up some of the misunderstandings you're probably seeing on social media with a fact checker at 4. We'll check in with Paul Jurgens, that KFGO News Center. Also, wrap up the weekend in sports, and boys, there's a lot to wrap up. Derek Hansen next. But here are a couple of fact checkers for you. And I asked Eric Johnson if he thinks they're true or not, and then we tell you whether or not you should or should not share them. Did Mitch McConnell distinguish African Americans from Americans just the other day when he was talking about the voting rights bill?
Yes, I have seen this video and heard this audio. He absolutely said that.
You did. In January 2022, U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell referred to African Americans and Americans as 2 separate groups. Another one for you. This happened just last week. I started seeing this image on my feeds because of DirecTV and OAN. Here's the claim of the viral image that I saw on Facebook the other week, last week. DirecTV cancels OAN after Joe Biden orders media outlets and tech giants to banish voices that deviate from the regime's official narrative.
Yeah, that headline is zero accuracy, in my opinion.
Correct. That is not true. Biden didn't have anything to do with it. That was just DirecTV saying, nope, not on our services.
Wait, you mean a private company made a decision for themselves?
Huh? What? Yeah, that is what I'm saying. It had nothing to do with Joe Biden. Your thoughts when we come back right after this KFGO News. Derek Hansen, Sports.
KFGO News, Fargo-Moorhead 3 below 0. I'm Paul Jerkins. Blood test results have confirmed that 7 members of a Moorhead family died of carbon monoxide poisoning last month. The family was found dead in their twin home in the 4400 block of 13th Street South on December 18th. High levels of carbon monoxide were detected in their bodies, and the furnace was one suspected cause of the poisonous gas. A dead battery in a van parked in the garage was ruled out after a third-party lab did further analysis. A carbon monoxide detector that had been removed from a wall was found in a cabinet. The victims ranged in age from 5 to 37. They had moved to Moorhead from Honduras. An attempt to gather enough signatures to place a question about legalizing recreational marijuana on the ballot in North Dakota has come up short. Organizers failed to turn in just over 31,000 valid signatures to the Secretary of State by Saturday to put the question to voters. A sponsoring committee member says the group gathered 19,500 signatures. He says the signature threshold is a lot to accomplish by unpaid volunteers. A similar drive failed in 2020 when the pandemic slowed the signature collecting process. Several groups have launched a campaign against legalizing recreational marijuana in Minnesota. The Minnesota Trucking Association, Safety Council, and Catholic Conference are among them. Ryan Hamilton is with the Catholic Conference.
We believe there's a better path to justice than normalizing and commercializing a highly potent, addictive substance that has been linked to the degradation of communities, linked to the degradation of the environment, and linked to the degradation of the overall common good.
Top Democrats in the Minnesota House will push to legalize recreational marijuana, while Republicans, who control the Senate, are against it. A longtime Cass County Commissioner and former state lawmaker Al Wieland passed away at the age of 86 on Saturday at Cheyenne Crossings in West Fargo. Wieland was a member of the State House representing District 13 in West Fargo from 2002 to 2014 and was a county commissioner from 1983 to 2003. His funeral is set for the weekend. Visitation will be from 5 to 7 with a prayer service at 7 at Faith and Journey Lutheran Church in West Fargo. The funeral Saturday morning at 10:30 at the church. Fargo-Moorhead, a clear night, and meteorologist Tom Szymanski is expecting a low of about 24 below zero. Tomorrow, 8 below for the high. Quite a bit of improvement Wednesday, mostly cloudy, windy, some blowing snow near 26 degrees, 14. Thursday, partly to mostly cloudy, windy, some blowing snow, and mid-teens, partly sunny Friday. Fargo-Moorhead, again 3 below zero. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
Derek Hansen, host of Couch Potato Radio, joins me in studio.
Good afternoon.
I have not seen anything like what we watched this weekend when it comes to NFL playoffs.
What's funny, a frequent guest on my show, and David Moulton used to work here at the sports station and now is the spotter for Troy Aikman. I texted him last night. I said, wow, this is amazing. He goes, it's the best weekend ever as far as NFL playoff football. And I can't think where all 4 games were this captivating all the way to the finish. And I think there might be something to that. I can't recall where it was just play after play and back and forth and coming down to a field goal, for 3 of the games. And, of course, overtime, walk-off touchdown for the last night's games.
I made up for the week before, in which I said, well, maybe we made a mistake in adding more teams to this playoff bracket.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know, right? Yeah. I mean, you had a 6 seed going to the NFC Championship game with San Francisco, and the Bengals kind of sit in an interesting spot, too. So it's really hard to know for sure exactly how it's going to go. I mean, but it looked like it's going to be a Road Warrior thing for the weekend, so that's where you also don't know 1 through 7 how it's going to go, and it's very close to being that way. Probably should have been. I think the Bills made a mistake. I think you got to squib the kick. I think you can go and you don't let the wide receivers come right off the line. If you get a holding call, who cares? You took time off the clock.
And that's where I'm fine with kicking that ball out of the back of the end zone because just because of that special teams play, you just never know. But not having your linebackers set up 15 yards down the field in the prevent defense is where they went wrong for me.
Yeah, it was Leslie Frazier. It was kind of an interesting story of 2 games yesterday, right? Because Leslie Frazier, former Vikings coach, defensive coordinator for the Bills, is looked to be maybe a head coach again, maybe with his team that he played with, the Bears. Todd Bowles has been talked about even with the Vikings. I think they did a Zoom interview with him.
I think that's right.
And he sends a guy and leaves Antoine Winfield all alone on an island with Cooper Kupp. That didn't work out the other way, too. So you can't do a zero blitz. You can't play total prevent defense. Somewhere in between, you got to find the right formula here.
Yep.
I mean, that was just kind of crazy. But why you wouldn't? I mean, the goal with 13 seconds, even with them having 3 timeouts, is to keep them kind of in bounds, right? I mean, keep them like intermediate, but to let Kelsey just run off the line of scrimmage like that is so bizarre.
Well, see, and that's the other thing here. I mean, now I get it that both, because you mentioned the Rams with Cooper Kupp, and now with Kansas City with Travis Kelce. I mean, these are arguably the people that you are targeting because you want to key on their playmakers.
Yep.
But now you got Odell Beckham as the other wideout, and the Rams. You have Tyreek Hill, who is fast and speedy. It's tough to have somebody keying on both, but you just don't have to let them get that free release and run 20 yards untouched down the field.
No, you're better off just holding them almost every play to make it a one play thing.
Yeah,
really. I mean, you don't let him. You don't want to get a pass interference, but you just can't let him free off and give him a little help here. So the one thing about it is the league is in good hands because I don't think anyone's not looking forward to this weekend's games, even though there's two number 12 sitting at home for the first time since 2009. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
You had you had a post that caught my attention about the Brady Manning.
Yeah,
that was great at that time. But
yeah.
Now you think about Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes and the way in which those two have battled now 2 consecutive years in a row.
Yep.
Of course, down in Kansas City, it's fun. How can you dislike like Josh Allen the way he's been playing? Yeah, I found myself rooting for Matthew Stafford just because of all the years that he was a good quarterback in Detroit. He didn't have the staff. Now he's there, and he's finally got an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl if he wins next week at home. It's just the storylines, aside from always having to be Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers in these championships, are great.
They really are. I saw a video of some gal was taking a video of her significant other going crazy wearing a Lions Stafford uniform, and he was going nuts because the Rams won. He finally got himself to an NFC Championship game, so that's really cool.
It is. I mean, just take a look at this stat. And one of the conversations that I saw playing out online was from, of course, all the Vikings fans we have. The Titans sacked Burrow 9 times.
Wow.
Packers held the 49ers to 6 offensive points. Bills took the lead with 13 seconds left, and all 3 of those teams lost. Let's start with the Burrow one. Sacked 9 times and still going on to win that game. People are like, see, look, if you had that amount of pressure on Kirk Cousins, no chance. And then people are wondering, see, with how much money Kirk Cousins gets paid in relation to what Pat Mahomes gets paid and what Josh Allen. It's like everyone's just finding, hey, we don't have what these tier quarterbacks have. That Kirk Cousins cannot get like what Joe Burrow did with the Bengals, what Josh Allen did with the Bills. I mean,
it's that it factor I always talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an intangible thing that you can't measure at the NFL Combine. And you can certainly see it with a lot of these guys that they have it. I mean, if you watch it closely, there's not always a clean pocket for some of these guys, and they're making plays, right? That you can say that even with Patrick Mahomes last night. I mean, these guys make plays. They make something out of nothing, and that's probably been the knock. I mean, you heard it quite a bit with Kirk Cousins. Hey, you really got to go off script on some of these plays to make something happen, and that's what he is not able to do often. He showed a little bit of a glimpse of that once in a while, but it's just not there. He kind of has to think about it before he does it, where it seems like the quarterbacks that we're talking about right now are a little bit instinctful on that whole thing.
Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to predict, does play another year, but he will not be a Green Bay Packer.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think he retires. There's some of that speculation that, go do it, Jeopardy. I think he's going to be in uniform next year. I don't think it'll be with Green Bay.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do because there's the X factor of if he's still engaged by someone who's in Hollywood, whether or not he wants to do this. Yeah, I mean, that's just what you have to look at. The 2 quarterbacks in L.A., I think, are established, right? I mean, they're going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Las Vegas, maybe not so much. And we're talking just a short – I mean, I just can't see him and this Ms. Woodley wanting to hang out in Green Bay. I think with Devontae Adams being a free agent, that's a huge factor in this. I don't think
because he said that Devontae's been the best player he's ever played with.
Right.
And think about some of the caliber of players he's had teammates.
Well, especially the wide receiver position too. So that is going to be something to watch here. I think his personal life is maybe going to make this decision. I think the same thing with Tom Brady. I think that, with his kids getting a little bit older, even though he can do it. And let's face it, at times those guys looked their age yesterday and Saturday night. I didn't think Rodgers played all that well. They should have been able to route the way that thing was going, and they just couldn't get going offensively, and he missed some targets. Let's just be honest about it. And I think he probably looking for a lifestyle change as much as he is a professional change, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. I think you just never know any given day what Aaron Rodgers is up to.
No. Well, but I do think
And
it's
if
a
he's being
thing.
truthful or not.
When you're sitting there in California and you have other things that you can do, and you look at mid-July going, oh, got to fly up to Green Bay to do this again. And if we do it and go all the way to another season where we're winning the division and get in the number 1 seed and we still lose, is this worth it? And that's going to, I mean, those things really start to wear on you. And if you go to another team, is it going to be any better? It's hard to get there. It really is.
Well, and Green Bay fans can be mad at me all they want because this is something else. You think about the level of quarterback play and talent, Hall of Famers that have been in Green Bay. What's been 30 years? And
Well,
only
I've
have
been
the two
talking.
titles.
I talked to Tom Szymanski, one of the biggest Packer fans I know about that. It's amazing to get 2 Super Bowls. I'd take 1, right?
Right.
But
yeah.
but you got 2 of the greatest of all time that have played for your organization. It is amazing that they've only won 2 and only been to 3.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's stunning, and they've had talent around them too. So everyone looks at their failures as granted. What do we expect? I'd just like to see a Super Bowl in my lifetime. I'd hope that they would win it for the Vikings, right?
Right.
You have Packers are like, we got 2, but we should be having about 5 or 6, and they're right.
They are right. There's no doubt they're right. And
Yeah.
it's, we think about the heartbreaking losses that so many other organizations have had to go through in the playoffs. You can't really discount the
They've
Packers
had a
as
lot.
being a part of that.
They've had a lot. That 15-1 season where they're upset by the Giants at home. I mean, that was one of the best teams I've ever seen. I mean, they had no rhyme or reason for losing that game. They just turned the ball over a lot.
Tyler, Aaron Rodgers will the next Dancing with the Stars. This comes in with
I
a
wouldn't
laugh.
doubt that.
Tyler, how do they leave Cooper Kupp so open? Best receiver in the league, and they handed it to him. It's insanity. The gamble you take by sending somebody on a blitz,
I'm not
you're
doing
going to
a
have
zero
that single
blitz,
coverage. And I jumped out of the chair with that one because it's like, again, I was just going for Matthew Stafford. Didn't have a dog in the fight.
Yep.
It's not that I despise Green Bay, but for Matthew Stafford to finally get where he was.
Yep. No, it was quite a game. It was just quite a weekend there as far as the storylines that go along with that. It's weird, when you think of the Rams too, and you think about Los Angeles, it's weird because the Rams, their only Super Bowl win is in St. Louis, right? So the organization,
beat the Titans.
The organization's only won their Super Bowl while they're in St. Louis. Los Angeles' only Super Bowl win was when the Raiders were there.
Yeah.
So how do you lay claim to that as a Los Angelian? I mean, how do you?
Yeah,
that's got to be weird.
Do you stick with your geographical area as far as being a fan, or do you just take whatever team's calling your city home?
From my experience with LA, they will take whatever they can get. It's a bunch of transplants anyway.
Right,
so
that's what I was going to
we're
say.
a Rams fan now.
How many Rams fans are? I'm like, how many Charger fans are making the trek? It's not that far, right? It's closer for a San Diego fan to go see their Chargers than it is for me to go see my Vikings.
Mm-hmm. Other question: are St. Louis geographical fans? Are they still Rams fans?
No, I was not a Stars fan when they left. Some people were.
Yeah, I think the most of them switched over to the Chiefs, especially
yeah,
with the rise of Mahomes.
I say that's the thing, and then it's easy to do when you're, look, we got a winning team right here in Kansas City.
I don't know. It's kind of hard for St. Louis fans to pull for anything in Kansas City. That's a fun little, especially since Kansas City, many of them are Jayhawk fans, and even
trust me, they like to tell you about it.
Yeah, I know, but when you're looking at Kansas City, Missouri, it's kind of like Moorhead probably has as many Bison fans as anyone, right? I mean, it's a weird area. My cousins live down there. It's kind of strange. And then they do like the UND hockey, NDSU football thing, where they really like Kansas State football, but they love Rock Chalk Jayhawk basketball. It's kind of if you didn't have a dog in the fight, and it drives the alums nuts.
I bet it does. I get it. I get it.
Sound familiar, Tyler? Yes.
Derek Jansen, host of Couch Potato Radio. Overtime rules. Let's talk about that. When we come back, plus Tom Ogie playing great golf.
Yes.
Yeah. Best he's finished in, I think, his entire career. That and so much more coming up. You got to locked in after he's live on KFGO.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So As people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out. And just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just giving the greatest good. When we're going until the food is out, as people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night. Got out of the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some huge needs in the community, and we got some things we got to address.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv.
All right, arguably the most exciting game as far as the way it finished was the game last night. You have Kansas City, you got Buffalo, and you have 2 quarterbacks playing top tier. I mean, both looking unstoppable until you have a rule in overtime, right? In which, if you score the touchdown, then game is over, that kind of sudden death situation. Do you think because of the high profile, now granted, there's a lot of people that love good defense. You didn't get a lot of that in the last 2 minutes of that game. Do you think this is going to be the one that finally gets the NFL to change? Because people are saying, look, in this high stakes, it's a playoff game. You have this back and forth. I mean, everyone's talking about this game. If it were to change, it would have to be because of this game, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was very similar to when the Vikings lost to the Saints after a controversial Ben Lieber pass interference call that sent the Saints to their first Super Bowl and eventually won the Super Bowl. I don't think there's any question that the pressure is going to be out there for that. And it's going to be something that, because I think all the coaches are going to say on the rules committee, I don't want to be in that situation. So I understand that. I don't have really a lot of sympathy for it. Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll cover you.
I don't have control of my mic.
So. That's me, and that's not me. That's Eric.
Yeah.
No, that's me. I tried to get it, but
I just came in from outside. Sorry about that. But I think it will actually happen at that point. So, and not a big surprise. What they do, I have no idea.
That's to say, what's the desired change?
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel sorry for the Bills as much because they had opportunities. If you can't hold a team to a field goal and get it your chance, I really don't. Really have much of a problem with it. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep it this way and then maybe they go to a 10-minute and then it's sudden death after 10 minutes of play, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get that.
They could do that.
That's where, just add a whole other quarter.
Now, if you have a 10-minute drive and you score,
it's essentially the same thing.
Exactly, but if you can't get off the field at that point, do you really feel sorry for the team that couldn't get the team off the field in 10 minutes? And that's what I wrestle with on this. I wouldn't be surprised if you see this rules stay for the regular season. They do something different for the postseason, just to get out early because they don't want to have just 10 minutes before. And that's not uncommon. I mean, hockey doesn't do a shootout in the postseason, but they do it in the regular season. And so I wouldn't be surprised.
Here's one. I found this tweet from Vikings Nation. I mean, that's not who tweeted it. It's some random guy. The Vikings are eventually going to score a touchdown first in overtime of an NFC Championship game. and then get beat by a new rule change that allows the other team to match. Because it's inevitable. So that's the mentality of the Vikings fans. So, yep, go ahead, change the rule. We'll be the first team to lose because of it.
I mean, it is a lot better than the old rule. We all can agree that, right? Where you'd win the
even on
point
a field goal.
And you just go on a field goal. I hated that. I didn't get that at all. Even though percentages showed it was like 50% of the time.
Yeah.
That means you didn't always get it. But with the way that these guys can boot field goals now, unless they're a Vikings kicker, that it doesn't take much. So,
Tyler, Bills voted no 3 years ago when roles were reversed.
Nice.
All of a sudden, that sympathy diminished just a little bit.
Well,
more.
I mean, I don't hate it if they change the rule. I don't care if they do the college rules. Only do it. I wouldn't want to do it the 25, maybe the 50 or the 45. I think that would be a little bit better. If I'm not going to lose my mind about it, I think that's fine. If they want to do just 10 minutes of overtime straight and then sudden death after 10 minutes, I'm fine. I'm fine with this, to be quite frankly, because if my defense, I look at it as a fan perspective, if the Vikings can't stop a team from getting a touchdown, they don't deserve to win at that point. I mean, I didn't like the field goal thing. A long field goal could lose it for you.
I think there's improvements to be made. What do you want to see done with the rule change? 35270. You can also call the Laney Studio line. 237-5948. Final half hour of Afternoons Live next.
Robertson here with another News Radio.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Derek
Mighty
Hansen,
790.
Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that? It Takes Two. Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning. Jerkins News Radio.
Katie Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, Voices Forces.
Too tall,
Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
So today on MSUM campus we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of independence.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page, and send us a text anytime at 3527.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Dean's Bulk Service and C-Store in Barnesville, on the corners of Highways 9 and 34. Large enough to serve you, small enough to know you.
KFGO News, 3 below zero. I'm Paul Juergens. A furnace was the source of carbon monoxide that killed 7 members of an immigrant family from Honduras living in Moorhead last month. Police had said that blood samples from the victim showed a lethal level of carbon monoxide, but further testing was needed to determine whether the source was the furnace or a van parked in an attached garage. The Ramsey County Medical Examiner's Office has found that the poison gas could not have come from the vehicle's battery. A carbon monoxide detector in the garage had been replaced with a smoke-only detector. Experts initially found no defect in the furnace that would have sent carbon monoxide into the home. The Highway Patrol has identified a woman who died when an SUV crashed into a flatbed tow truck left on the interstate in western Cass County over the weekend. The crash also critically injured 2 of her children, ages 9 and 14, and seriously injured her husband, the SUV driver. 43-year-old Kelly Hagelrott of Bismarck was killed, and 42-year-old Timothy Hagelrott was taken to a Fargo hospital along with the 2 children. The truck had a mechanical issue and was left on I-94 near Tower City. The tow truck driver got a ride from the scene and left his truck. The family was returning to Bismarck from a volleyball tournament in Monticello, Minnesota. An effort to gather enough signatures to place a question about legalizing recreational marijuana on the ballot in North Dakota has come up short. Organizers failed to turn in enough valid signatures to the Secretary of State by the Saturday deadline to put the question to voters. The group gathered about 2/3 of the necessary signatures in its one-year time limit. A similar attempt failed in 2020 when the pandemic hampered the group's signature gathering. The new Minnesotans Against Marijuana legislative group is hoping to convince state lawmakers to back away from a push to legalize recreational marijuana.
The newly formed coalition says marijuana legalization in Minnesota most likely would have little impact on racial disparities when it comes to equitable enforcement of the law. Ryan Hamilton is with the Minnesota Catholic Conference, which serves as the official public policy voice for the Catholic Church of Minnesota.
The marijuana bill that passed the Minnesota House last session wasn't a justice bill. It was a marijuana commercialization bill. And as we've seen from other states who have opened the doors to the marijuana industry, the promises made to justify marijuana legalization rarely come true, particularly for communities of color.
In 2020, the ACLU found that despite the push for marijuana legalization across the country, a black person was more than 3.5 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than a white person.
That's reporter Mark Fry. 3 below, this is KFGO News. Three below zero, this is KFGO News. A longtime Cass County Commissioner and former state legislator, Al Wieland, passed away at the age of 86 on Saturday at Cheyenne Crossings in West Fargo. Wieland was a member of the State House. He represented District 13 in West Fargo from 2002 to 2014 and was a county commissioner from 1983 to 2003. Longtime Richland County Sheriff Larry Leshevsky has decided to retire. He joined the department in 1981. He's been sheriff for the past 18 years. Leshevsky says it was a difficult decision not to run again. He says he's looking forward to doing other things, including spending time with family. Education Minnesota President Denise Speck is calling on state lawmakers to prioritize the well-being of students and staff when the session begins next week. Speck says the pandemic has wreaked havoc on schools and the mental health of students.
I absolutely believe if we do not concentrate on getting more staff into our buildings, the time is right. We have this huge surplus. We could be hiring more counselors right now.
Speck says Minnesota is third worst in the country for student-teacher ratios, and she says that's nothing to be proud of. KFGO Weather Center forecast, wind chill advisory until 9 this evening, and then a wind chill warning until noon tomorrow. Fargo-Moorhead, a clear night, about 24 below for the overnight low. Tomorrow, only 8 below zero for the high, sunshine. Mid-20s, mostly cloudy on Wednesday, windy, some areas of blowing snow. Also some blowing snow expected on Thursday, partly to mostly cloudy, and 14 and 15, partly sunny Friday. Fargo-Moorhead, 3 below. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
I don't remember what part of the movie this is in.
Derek could probably be a better one to answer that
Some
one.
Blues Brothers for you.
They're on the stage, isn't it? Part of it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I was expecting Sweet Home Chicago.
Not in the system, unfortunately. We're going to have to rectify that soon.
How is this?
Fair enough.
John Belushi's birthday, in case you're
Really?
wondering. Yeah. Blues Brothers, great movie, holds up.
Well, for sure. Carrie Fisher was great in it, too.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we always forget that she's in that, but yeah. One of her roles outside of Princess Leia.
Uh-huh.
She was good when Harry Met Sally, too. You ever see that?
Yeah, that's been many, many years.
Yeah.
I don't recall. Either way, John Belushi, yeah. 1949, I think, is when he was born.
Really?
Yeah. Get you caught up to CBS National News. We'll recap, but just a little bit more in sports, including Tom Hoagie playing great golf yesterday. Derek Hans is my guest. I'm Tyler Axis. Stick around.
So today on MSUM campus we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion instruments with ice instruments, which are also going to be used in a percussive form. We're going to hit them with mallets, hammers, all those types of things. Today is all improv, so we're all just kind of working with ideas that we just kind of think of as we go, and we kind of play off each other, and it's fun to collaborate but also have a sense of independence.
Well, we're doing a food giveaway event to the community. A lot of people are facing food insecurity at this time. As we can tell, we had to start about an hour early because we just had so many people lined up. So as people come up and they need whatever they need, volunteers are taking care of it. It's all contactless, so nobody has to get out. And just making sure whatever the greatest need. We're just getting the greatest good. We're going until the food is out. As people are coming in, if they need 2 boxes and 2 gallons of milk, that's what we're giving. We don't want to leave anybody out.
I was in the hospital, and I saw a flyer on the wall. And all the nurses were talking about taking people down there to get food and stuff. I got out last night, the hospital last night, and I said, man, I'm going to do this. When I came from Williston here, I lived on these streets for 3 years, caring. And that's what this is. That's the way I see it. Very helpful. I think it's going to be very helpful because I know people that are doing without.
I think it's truly remarkable how much need there is out there. Like I said, we were going to start at noon, but we had so many people lined up. We started at 11, and volunteers have been working their tail off since then. I'm thankful for that. I think this shows that there is some
Wild were in action this weekend. They're going to be in action again tonight, right here on KFGO. And I did hear, because I think they were playing when the Niners defeated the Packers, and they started a Skol chant.
Hockey Day in Minnesota on Saturday, I believe.
Yeah, that's what it was.
They started a Skol chant at Excellent Energy Center after the Packers lost.
That's what I heard. I was not there, so do not take
This is how sad it is for us. We have to live vicariously through any loss for the Packers because we couldn't make the playoffs. That's almost embarrassing. We shouldn't take. Although I will say, I do remember there was some podcast or whatever. He was doing like a video thing on YouTube, and he was so he's wearing a Packer thing. He's laughing at the fact that the Vikings are going to lose to the Saints. And then the miracle happened. You just started going because he's like trying to do this thing where he's watching with other Packer fans. So I guess we're not the only ones who do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you take joy in seeing New Orleans and Atlanta lose? Or?
Absolutely, without question, do I take joy in watching, say, the Rams beat the Buccaneers or the Saints not even making the playoffs. I take great joy in it.
Okay. So
I am one of those fans.
Let's say Bubba gets the team to Frisco some year. Would you be able to? I mean, would you be pulling for your home state of North Dakota or?
The silence is deafening.
Let me back you on that.
This sounds like Lambeau Field after the field goal went through on Saturday night.
Did you hear what Juvie G said? Anyway, we're not going to get in trouble there. Yes, I would. I think Depends.
No, you wouldn't. No, you
Yeah, I'm trying to cover
Well,
my
I think
behind here.
what you wrestle.
UND athletics is part of this. I'm just trying to knock.
If you asked Tyler if he'd be okay with UND winning a hockey championship, I think he'd say he could be neutral to slightly positive. Football, no chance.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Wouldn't you be happy for Bubba, the state of North
Sure,
Dakota, the great?
But, Bubba would have earned it. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to wear the jersey that I don't have, and I'm not going to have one of you guys bring one in to force me to wear.
No, I mean that's fair. I'm just because my thing is pulling for the Gophers. I always seem to tend to pull for Wisconsin or Iowa if they're in their bowl game. Just because I think it's kind of conference pride, whatever you know. So it's interesting that you don't.
Are you cheering for Hawkeyes on the wrestling mat ever?
I guess to win the title, what do you do? I mean, they won so many at this point. I think I do appreciate greatness of Gable and what have you. And then when they, Dan Gable, that is.
Yeah.
And when they did give Gable Stevenson the standing ovation after he tore apart their heavyweight a couple weeks ago, it's hard for me not to like them. And then the whole wave thing to the Children's Hospital, I mean, they're doing some good things there. So it's hard to hate them as much as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
The only time
you
I
can
really
still root against them. That's fine.
I went to a Gopher Hawkeye game at the Metrodome. This is like 2005 or so, and that was really turned off by the fan base because they were so inebriated, and it was just chaos. And they were just annoying. And then that was the game where they went on the field and they tried to get the goalposts through the revolving doors.
Yes. Yes, inebriated slightly.
We had left by that time. We did not see all these shenanigans going on, but they couldn't get them off. I guess they're having this blaring sound to get them off. It wasn't the best look for the Hawkeye fans that day, but they are pretty nice. Iowa City's beautiful, so I'll give them that. But
You go. So how did that conversation, like to the back of the line, go?
We were talking about cheering for rivals. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about from the guy that's got the front of the goalpost
trying to get through.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even know how they got through it wasn't like they had these wide corridors to get through even the entry at that time. Remember that? I mean, it wouldn't have been easy to walk up those stairs for anything, let alone with the goalposts. Yeah, and then you had the incident where they found a couple in the stall, and
remember
that?
Yeah.
And then the police report said, and they were released to their significant others. So that had to have been a long ride home to Iowa on I-35.
I'm guessing somebody was walking along the highway with a thumb out saying, please, somebody pick me up.
That could have gone well, so, yeah.
Kudos to the police report for having all the details for
one of the most obnoxious fan bases I've ever been around, though, was at the Sweet 16. I was still in college, and it was at the Metrodome, and it was Wake Forest with Tim Duncan, Keith Van Horn with Utah. So it was a pretty good four. And then you had Kentucky during their run with Rick Pitino. And also Louisville was there. So we had a lot of people from Kentucky.
Sure.
But the Kentucky Wildcat fan base has maybe not cheered for them ever since because they were every call was against them. It was just unbelievable.
I'm going to throw it out there to you. 35270, the Eye Consultants of North Dakota text club, the most obnoxious fan base you've been near. I'm trying to think of which fan bases turned me off to that team so much.
Yeah. That was it for me.
Yeah.
Kentucky and Iowa that game. Now I'm starting to like him more. So, respect them more, if that makes any sense. I'm guessing Joel Heynkamp might say Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, I think,
when you're physically assaulted, I think that would work out.
I think that's the safe answer there. The one time that it was watching a game, and this was when we were playing quite well as far as Carolina, but of course I wasn't at the game. There was a table full of Packer fans. Then we were playing Green Bay. That the loudest, most obnoxious.
Really?
Yeah. Locally here. Now, I'm not using that example to say the entire Green Bay, because what I hear about your experience when you actually go to Lambeau is just superior. It's fun.
Yeah, it's. I'll even say this Saturday night when I was watching it, I was, obviously not necessarily pulling for the Packer fans, but I don't hate them. They're really nice.
Yeah, see,
when they were there in 2019,
table,
they'd have their little jabbing where the usher would say, "Welcome to the home of the 13-time world champion Green Bay Packers," and we just chatted, and it was, they're. They're nice when you're there.
I went to Lambeau for a Bears game with a couple of Bears fans.
That might be a little different.
No, it was super fun.
See, and
there was some friendly trash talk.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the difference there is you can have friendly trash talk, and it's hard to hate them.
I expected this to come in. You guys ready for this? Bison football fans. Tyler, the worst fans are Bison fans. Can't stand them. Bison fans keep coming in. I knew I was walking into that one. Yeah. Thanks.
Here's my only issue with a small segment of the Bison fans. I don't think that they say that they're fans, but they don't know. There's a small percentage. Annoying to me if I'm sitting here on a Saturday. Yeah, what time do you guys have the Bison on? We've been home at UND, so it's like, thank you for thinking of us. And not knowing the time that they kick off, where to find them on TV. We've been through this every year. And I just think, and then why someone said to me on New Year's Day, and I just looked at them weird, and the Rose Bowl is on. And they said, what's this game about? I said, well, it's the Rose Bowl. Well, is it like the FCS champion? Is it like the championship that the Bison are in? And I'm starting to lose my mind at this point. And I said, no, it's the bleeping Rose Bowl. And so
that was not an on-air conversation. You can gather.
No,
from that.
and it was one of these things where they don't really understand college football, like the divisions and who's where. There's that small percentage of people that don't get that. Why don't they play in a bowl game against an Alabama?
I can tell you,
stop.
As a season ticket holder and as a Bison fan, I had season tickets before we started this run. There are people in certain sections that anytime there's a flag against us, it's the worst call ever. I hate to break it to you, boys and girls. Sometimes
it was a hold.
Penalties are justified. Sometimes that laundry on the field was warranted.
Yeah.
Yes, even against us Bison.
Yeah, so I think your own fan base can be cringeworthy, right? I mean,
trust me, I've been reading all from Panthers Nation about what's going on down there. Yeah, it's brutal.
I mean, and even some Viking fans, I roll my eyes. It's like everyone should get fired all the time, every week.
Here's one for you. Yeah. Tyler Rogers to Minnesota for his final year. Vikes won a Super Bowl.
We're going to see that movie again, huh?
Can we have the helicopter coverage of him from the airport?
The plane is on the ground. The limo's on the way. The most obnoxious fan base. That's the conversation at hand. Gopher hockey fan base comes in at 35270.
Well, there's no one there anymore.
Yeah. No one's attending the game.
I've been to a number of Sioux Gopher, UND Gopher, depending on the year, and it's like any other fan base. There's some that are obnoxious, but there's that equal amount in the UND fan base that's obnoxious.
Correct.
I've had very few really negative experiences at college hockey games,
right?
And I've never felt unsafe.
No,
like the stories you hear at some of the NFL games. If you're
right, exactly,
clothes.
Back in Oakland, you didn't want to go up
and somebody texted Tyler where to go. I heard that Oakland and now in Vegas is a very tough crowd.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Yeah,
so these people in Oakland, are they flying to Vegas every weekend? It's just an excuse for them to go to Vegas every home game?
Yeah, I'm sure
I wouldn't doubt it.
I mean, that's not how far of a drive do you think that is?
I think it's a jaunt, but from Oakland compared to where it would be from LA.
But the best part about Las Vegas is you can fly there from cheap from anywhere.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
And
including right here at Hector International.
You make a good point because there is a fan base of Raiders fans. Because I remember going to LA in 2005, and there were billboards everywhere. I don't know if it's Bud was sponsored or whatever. It said, "This is Raider Nation." In LA. Still. So, and I think Ice Cube did a documentary. Didn't you do a 30th for 30 about that?
They probably
Their
did.
time in LA. So
A-Rod cheering for the Packers and buying the Timberwolves equals a bad look.
Yeah, I don't think,
I mean, it didn't might as well be Rob Lowe and just wear the NFL hat and just hope everyone's
It's a smart move there.
It was a great move. In fact, I hope Eric finally found that hat so he could buy, since he's not really a fandom of any of the teams.
If he moves the team to Seattle, does it matter? I mean, does he care at that point?
More messages coming in. I got to get this weather update from Too Tall Top Schmansky. 10 minutes until the top of the hour. Drive time news next. We'll see what's coming up.
Culberson here with another News Radio.
Hey, this is Abby Miller with the
Dear
Mighty
Kansas
790.
Couch Potato Radio. Did you see that
from It Takes Two?
Doug Miller with the morning crew this morning.
Jerkins News Radio.
Amy Eiler with It Takes Two.
This is Jack Michaels, voice of sports.
Too tall,
Joel Heitkamp here on the Mighty
Sarah
7.
Heinrich.
Tyler Axis, your host.
The Mighty 790 and 104.7 FM KFGO. The names you know, the voices you trust.
Thanks for watching News and Views on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe and like our page. And send us a text anytime at 35270.
So today on MSUM campus, we're doing an ice jam, which is we're combining a bunch of percussion